Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. We have another unboxing video for you guys today as I just got an incredible score. It was a bunch of really cool, some are really rare, some not so much, but some really cool stuff that I got for pretty cheap. It was a seller that I found that was selling like little lots of figures for like $3-4 for like 3 figures at a time. So I just bought a whole bunch of the lots and they all combine into this one big box of awesomeness. So we're going to bring them in. Some figures I have already, and I just double dipped because I like having doubles at times, and some figures are figures that I have no idea what they are. I've never even seen them before. And speaking of figures I've never seen before, the first two I'm going to bring in are these interesting looking creatures. I don't know what these guys are, and maybe you guys can inform me of what they are. They are very interesting. In fact, the one on the right almost seems to have a Godzilla-like head to it, but I saw them on there. I saw that he was selling them, and I thought they looked really neat, very different, and something that I don't see very often, so I just took a chance on them. They may be worthless figures. They may be, valuable rare figures. I don't know. I doubt they're valuable or rare because they just kind of look like some cheap Chinasaur type things, some kind of kaiju figures. I don't really know, but they looked neat enough that I was interested in, considering the fact that the one on the right has almost like a Godzilla-like head to him. I was really intrigued by both, and I thought since it was, again, like $3 for both of them, for the cheap price, why not try and see what they look like in person? And I'm definitely happy with the purchase because they're, again, figures that I've never seen before. They're very interesting, though. They're, I don't know, super strange looking kaiju. They almost kind of remind me of sort of like a monster like Gappa, if you've ever seen that giant monster film, because they have like the wings and stuff, and they're just sort of goofy looking, but I definitely quite like them. Again, very interesting looking figures. This one looks pretty much the same, but with an alternate head. This one's got kind of like almost a dragon-like head. He does have a little chip there on that horn on his nose, but still two really cool figures that I know absolutely nothing about, but could not resist picking them up because I love kaiju, I love giant monsters, things like that, and they were very interesting looking. And then speaking of giant monsters, we also got this guy who I, for some reason, am having a brain fart currently and cannot remember the name of. I know he's a kaiju from Ultraman, but I don't know exactly who this one specifically is. Again, there is a plethora of Ultraman kaiju, so it's not all that surprising that I wouldn't recall each and every one, but he's definitely a really cool figure, a Bandai figure, and again, another really cheap figure that I was able to acquire, and I actually don't have any Bandai Ultraman kaiju, so I was really happy to get my first here, and he's actually in quite nice shape overall, it seems. So a really, really cool figure. If any of you are familiar with the Ultraman series, you'll have to let me know in the comments exactly who this guy is, as again, I cannot recall offhand right now. It'll probably come to me later, but by then maybe one of you guys will have already commented exactly who he is, and I'll know from your comment, and I won't have to remember anymore. And then there is this very interesting Pteranodon, and I don't know anything about it other than it looks like it would be like a Safari Ltd figure. I believe I've seen a Safari Ltd Pteranodon very similar to this in the past, but this thing is much larger, and it's not labeled as a Safari Ltd, so I don't know exactly who makes this figure, but it's definitely really, really nice looking overall. I mean, for being kind of like a cheaper version of a Pteranodon, it's quite nicely detailed. The paint application isn't anything crazy, but what we do have on it is quite fun. And overall, a really cool looking pterosaur that I absolutely did not have in my collection, so I'm happy to put this one in there as well. And then we have a figure that I do have quite a few of. This is a Safari Ltd Utah Raptor, but still a fun vintage figure that I am a fan of. I'm a fan of pretty much anything Safari Ltd, even if it's the figures that aren't all that great, kind of like this guy. So again, another figure that I do have, but something I'm happy to add another of, especially since it's a small figure. It's not something that's going to take up a ton of room, so he can just slide in there with ease. And then we have this unfortunate soul, who is a Triceratops that I assume someone painted all over because he looks like he's been through quite a war with, I don't know, markers and paint, I guess. So he's not in very good shape, but I knew this coming into purchasing the lot that had this guy, but the lot that actually had this one, I was obviously not buying it for this Triceratops. It's just something that came with it and something I may repaint. We'll just have to wait and see. And then we have this really cool Great Dinos style Velociraptor. Again, not your most accurate Velociraptor, but being a Safari LTD Velociraptor, I really, really quite like the figure overall. And although I do have this figure, I don't have it in this green color scheme. And in fact, I've actually never seen it in this green color scheme before. So I was pretty happy to acquire it in a color scheme that it doesn't seem as very common for the figure, and definitely again a really nice figure that I think I only have one of previously, so I have absolutely no problem with adding yet another one into my collection. A really cool looking, very large Velociraptor, obviously sporting more of a scaly type of a look as opposed to feathers, although we do have some feathers on it, but for the most part it's non-feathered, but still a really nice looking figure that I'm a big fan of. Then the next figure is a figure that I have probably about 10 of at this point, which is funny because it's a figure that at one time was really sought after by me, but it was before I ever knew what it was. When I was a child, I had actually seen this figure in a store, and it was a store my dad had taken me to, and at the time I guess he just didn't have enough money to pick one up for me. I remember kind of bugging the crap out of him for it and hoping that he would pick one up for me, and he did not, and I never knew who made the figure or anything about it, so I spent years wondering. This was of course prior to me really getting into collecting dinosaurs, but I had spent years wondering who made the figure and hoping to eventually seek one out, and I have since acquired tons of them. But this is obviously the Safari LTD Velociraptor. I am really hoping to eventually one day paint one of these, like repaint one, because I have so many now that I should have absolutely no problem repainting one. And this one might be the guy. I don't know. He looks like he's got pretty good paint chips on him and stuff in certain spots. So maybe this guy will get repainted. We'll just have to wait and see. But another awesome figure. I love this Velociraptor from Safari LTD. Now here's a figure I was so psyched to find in this lot. It's one I don't have and I've wanted for a very long time. This is the Schleich Macrauchenia, and I always thought that every image that I had seen of it, it looked so good, it looked so beautiful, and I love Macrauchenia, so I was really interested in picking it up, but every time I saw it on eBay or anywhere, it was usually going for a pretty hefty price, so I just never picked it up until now, and I'm glad I waited because I was able to get this one for, again, really, really cheap, practically I'd say $1, because, again, the figures were like $3 for 3 figures or $4 for 3 figures, so it's, you know, a $1.50 depending on which lot I actually got it from, so a really, really good price, really cheap price for an incredibly nice Macrauchenia figure that I've wanted for a very long time, and it's a beautiful looking figure. I may actually review this one at some point just because it's so nice. And then we have a figure that I also have quite a few of already, the Safari LTD Tanistropheus. I do have quite a bit of this figure in different paint schemes and stuff, but it's a really cool figure, a figure that I feel like is potentially, you know, a little bit before its time, having like an articulated neck and everything. So it's a really, really nice version of a species of animal that just doesn't get figures very often, and in fact I don't really recall too many aside from this, and the older Jurassic Park toy line had one. So something that I love is this figure, so I'm happy to get another anytime I get one, even if it is something that I already have like 4 or 5 times. And then we have 2 Disney's Dinosaur Iguanodon figures, really cool for sure. Again, I have both of these for sure. Maybe, yeah, I most definitely have this one. I know I have this one probably like 10 times already, but I think I have this one once or twice already as well. But I love the Disney's Dinosaur film, so definitely okay with getting more figures from that film in my collection, even if it's kind of repeats of stuff that I already have. They're both such really nice figures, and again, some stuff that maybe at some point in time I'll take a couple of the extras and repaint those as well. Maybe make a video out of it, we'll just have to see. But 2 really nice figures, especially this one. I really quite like that version of Aladar. And then we've got one of the most vintage dinosaur figures of all time, the Imperial Stegosaurus. It's a figure that I've had for years as a child, but I actually never had this paint scheme, so this is a new addition to my collection as far as the paint scheme goes. It's a very interesting paint scheme, as opposed to the kind of, I think it was like a reddish or an orangish one that I have already a few times. I don't think I've had this paint scheme yet. It's possible that now as an adult collector I may have purchased it in a lot and I just don't recall, but as far as I can remember, I don't have this version before, but I'm sure by now, if you're around my age, you guys have probably seen this figure tons of times. And then we also have a Carnegie collection Spinosaurus, who has really sloppily painted eyes. He just looks totally insane, almost like he's like mesmerized or hypnotized or something up there. But I love this figure. I have this one already about 2-3 times now as well, because I like it so much. I love the vintage appearance to the Spinosaurus. It's a version of Spinosaurus that I pretty much grew up on, is this type of a look, so I really quite like it. I know there are alternate paint schemes of this. I think I only have this one repeatedly. It just seems like I always encounter this one as opposed to the other version that there is out there. So I'll have to work on getting the other one at some point, but still an awesome figure. And then we have the figure that's in probably the worst shape out of all of them, but it's a figure that I also have probably I'd say 4 or 5, maybe 6 of already, and this is a Safari LTD Tyrannosaurus Rex, but this one is also in really bad shape. It seems like this is one of the most popular figures to just absolutely beat up and obliterate when you're a child, because almost all the time whenever I get this figure, it's really badly beaten up, which causes me to make some very interesting repaints with them, because sometimes they're missing teeth, sometimes they're missing fingers, and I can't tell. I think his fingers are all there. He's definitely missing a toe. We can see that. So they're usually missing something. So that just tells me that kids really like this T-Rex when they get it, and they obviously play with it a lot. But again, this guy will not go to waste. He'll get repainted at some point. We'll just have to wait and see what we repaint him as. And then we also have an old Carnegie collection Triceratops. It's another figure that I have, and we seem to be saying that a lot with these figures, but that almost always happens when I get like huge lots of figures or even small lots of figures. The odds of me not having any figures in it are pretty slim, so I usually end up with a lot of doubles as far as these figures go. But considering their age and their rarity at times, I'm okay with having numerous of each and every one of them. It just makes my collection grow to incredibly large and almost obnoxious heights, but it's still fun figures to add to my collection repeatedly because I love the Safari LTD line. And then we have another really cool figure. This is the Bullyland Diatrima, and I think I have this guy already. I think I also got him in a lot like a long time ago. It was probably not too long ago, maybe a year or two ago, when I got that really awesome lot full of extremely nice figures, very rare figures for like $200, and I think this guy was in that lot as well. But I'm fine with getting another one, especially because it's a very rare figure, but also just because I like this species a lot. So, plus it's a Bullyland figure, and I'm really growing to like the Bullyland figures more and more as time goes on. But speaking of Bullyland, we also got the Bullyland Cave Bear, and how cool is that? This is a figure that I didn't even realize existed until I pulled it out, and I'm like, man, that looks like it could potentially be a cave bear. And then I just found the company name somewhere on it. Now I can't, oh, there it is. So it's over here, and it does say that it's a Bullyland figure. So that is really awesome. And actually, I think this might be the very first cave bear that I have entering my collection. I don't have the Papo one quite yet, although I do want to get a hold of it. And I don't recall having anybody else prior to this. So it's a really cool figure, definitely a rare one being a Bullyland figure. So I'm quite happy that I got this one. Then there is also a Jurassic Park Triceratops. I actually don't know anything about this figure. I don't know if this was something that came with like a human character or what, a human figure. I have no idea. So maybe you guys can let me know exactly where this one comes from, but it's definitely a fun looking Triceratops if my camera would stay focused on it. Definitely a fun looking Triceratops, and anytime I can add anything that is Jurassic Park to my collection, I'm super happy about it. And there's actually quite a few other Jurassic Park figures in here as far as these kind of like smaller figures. I think these guys were potentially from the JP3 line. I could be wrong, I'm not entirely sure, but we've got obviously 2 T-Rex and a Spinosaurus and then the Triceratops. So fun stuff, really cool figures that I am super happy to have, because although I did have some of these from years ago, I definitely lost them over time, because that's just how it works, and I'm happy to have some of them back. Don't know if I had each of these, but regardless, I'm happy to have them now. And then we have another Bullyland figure as we enter a Pteranodon into the scene here, but I actually do have this one prior to this video and this unboxing. I actually purchased this on Everything Dinosaur as they were able to acquire stock of a few pretty rare Bullyland figures. So I do already have the figure, but I'm happy to have another, especially because, again, it's a rare figure being a Bullyland. Anytime I can get a Bullyland figure, I'm really happy about it. Another nice Bullyland figure. And then we also got another Jurassic Park 3 T-Rex here. This is obviously not one of those smaller mini style ones, although it's another figure that I 110% do have. But again, anytime I can add a Jurassic Park figure, even if it's something that I already have numerous times, I am 100% down because I love the Jurassic Park toy franchise. I love each and every figure in the Jurassic Park franchise and the toy franchise, even if they are not the best versions of the species that they portray, as this obviously isn't a very good Rex, but I'm happy to have another one. And this one's not in bad shape. He's in pretty decent shape overall, not too many paint scuffs or anything on him. Then we have a really cool Bullyland Smilodon figure, yet another figure that I did not have previously. So there's a lot of Bullyland figures out there that I need to catch up on, a lot of figures that I would love to be able to add to my collection. And my Bullyland collection is quite small at this point, so being able to get some in really nice lots like this for cheap, again for like $1 or $2, I would say it averages out to each figure. I'm really happy to acquire some on the cheap side once in a while. And then speaking of Safari Ltd and the Great Dinos line, we also have a gigantic red Tyrannosaurus Rex. This is another version, as far as these Great Dinos figures go, that previously I did not know existed. I had no idea there was a reddish version of this figure. I've seen a few different paint variants of it, but never saw the red one. So when I had seen this, I was really happy to stumble upon it and definitely wanted to pick it up just because it's something I haven't seen very often. And it's a really cool looking figure. Not, again, your most accurate interpretation of a Tyrannosaurus, but still a really fun one. And another Safari Ltd figure, so it's a win either way. And then I state this every time I get another one of these. This is one of my favorite Iguanodon figures ever, just because it has a beautiful vintage appearance to it. This is another Safari Ltd. Carnegie Collection Iguanodon, also in really quite nice shape overall. It's amazing to me how some of these figures can last so many years, because this figure was probably made in like the late 80s, I would imagine. Let's see if we've got a date here on the underside. Okay, so the early 90s, it states 1992 on there. So again, a figure that can last that long and still manage to be in quite nice shape overall. We do have a few paint chips, but nothing major on the figure. And then we have a figure that is another figure I'm super happy to have, another Bullyland figure, and I'm pretty certain it is an Eohippus. I haven't actually looked into it too far. I know it is obviously Bullyland, and it clearly is very reminiscent of an Eohippus from the appearance that we have here, so I'm pretty sure that's what it is, and if it is, that's the very first Eohippus figure I've ever entered into my collection, so another very exciting species to enter my collection that constantly gets overlooked. I don't know why, but it's a really beautiful figure. Like Bullyland, sometimes they have kind of goofy looking figures, and then other times they have really nice looking figures. I feel like this is definitely a beautiful interpretation of an Eohippus, so another really exciting figure to arrive into my collection. And then to try to kind of hurry this up just a little bit, as this video is going a little longer than I would like, we have a few random Safari Ltd figures that I have plenty of in my collection, as well as this very goofy looking Pachycephalosaurus who has got bowed legs and doesn't want to stand. I actually think I have this guy from maybe one of the Adventure Force buckets from Walmart. I think that's probably where he came from, but I could be wrong. And then, of course, we have 3 Safari Ltd figures here that are not 3 of Safari Ltd's best, but still 3 really cool figures that, again, I already have, but I'll add them to my collection again, because why not? Anything vintage is awesome to me, as long as it's a dinosaur or some sort of a prehistoric animal, but even better when it's a Safari Ltd figure. And then we've got another Jurassic Park figure that was hiding in here, another raptor who looks quite goofily menacing, kind of, sort of. I did always like these kind of smaller Jurassic Park figures, and of course I think this guy is a Jurassic Park 3 figure, but I could be wrong. I'm not too familiar. It actually may not be. But another fun figure to throw into the Jurassic Park collection. And there's also this very interesting snapping turtle, which I've actually had this figure prior, but I gave it to my son quite a few years ago, and I always kind of regretted it because I thought it was a really nice looking figure, and I kind of wanted to get another one for myself, and luckily it was in this box. So a really cool figure to add to my collection as well. And it's only one of, I think, 2 figures in here that are not technically, I guess you could say, prehistoric, although turtles are quite prehistoric. But it's a species that's still alive today, and the other one is this, the Safari Ltd crocodile, which I actually just recently had put up a video of an unboxing where I got this figure, and now I have another one. This one actually looks like a potentially could be in better shape than the previous one, but now having two means maybe I'll repaint one to, give it a little bit more of a realistic appearance. And then we have a really cool Safari Ltd Styracosaurus as well, another figure that I have quite a few of in my collection, but nothing wrong with that because it's a beautiful looking figure. And then we also have another Safari Ltd Saltosaurus, which is also another beautiful figure. This one definitely seems to have some paint wear to it in comparison to some of the others. I think I actually may have had this one in that lot as well, but this one definitely has some pretty significant paint wear, so I may repaint this guy at some point. Then we have another really, really exciting figure, the Batat Styracosaurus, and I actually do have this figure, but I only have one, and considering the rarity of the Batat figures, I was really happy to acquire another one and enter it to my collection, just in case anything for some crazy reason would happen to the first one. I've got another to back up on, but also just because it's an awesome Batat figure, and I would love to have plenty of this. And then we've got a few other older Safari Ltd figures, as we have one of these Allosaurus, which is a fairly common figure, and then a really nice looking Parasaurolophus as well. I believe both are potentially Carnegie collection figures. Both are really cool vintage kind of interpretations of said species. So two really cool figures. And then we also have one more Safari Ltd figure, the Dimetrodon, and I love this figure, absolutely love this Safari Ltd Dimetrodon figure. I always have, and I've always wanted to pick up another one. I only have one, but I've always wanted to get another one just because it's such a nice looking figure. So I was really happy to see that this guy was in here, just because now it makes it a little easier. I don't have to go search one out, and now I'll have two. And then we also have another Batat Stegosaurus, and this is, of course, the original version, the brownish version, as opposed to the newer re-release, and I do already have one of these as well, but it's another figure with the older ones. They're so hard to find. Anytime I can get another one of these, I'm really happy, because it's something that would be probably a pretty big issue to find if something happened to one of the ones that I have, and I do only have one of these previously as far as this color scheme goes, and this one's in really, really good shape, so I was really happy. Again, anytime I can find a Batat figure, I'm psyched. And here's one that I was really blown away that was in here. This is the original brown Papo Velociraptor. Now, if you are familiar with this figure, you'll know it's a very, very pricey figure to get a hold of. It's very rare. The only downside is it has some paint scuffs. You can see one right there, one down here on the tail, and if we turn it around, we have some ugly ones right here on the legs. I can't really tell if they're paint scuffs, like paint chipped off of it, or if it's paint that was put onto it. If it's paint that was put onto it, I may potentially be able to take it off. If it's paint that was chipped off of it, maybe I could touch it up. But regardless, I did already have one of these, but similar to the Batat figures, if I can get another one and just kind of have, a couple of them, considering their rarity, I'm definitely okay with that. So seeing that this guy was in here was really awesome, because it's a figure that's very hard to find. And again, I've only ever had one, and I actually scored that one also in a pretty good lot of like a bunch of Papo figures, older Papo figures. And this was prior to me even making a YouTube channel. I think I had scored this in like a lot for like $30, and the other one is in really good shape. This one not so much, but regardless, it's still an awesome figure. And the figure that I was most excited about, I waited here till the end to bring it in, is a figure that I cannot stress enough how much I wanted. And although I do kind of have it already, sort of, this is the original, well, not the original, technically the second version, the second variant of the Batat Tyrannosaurus. Now, the one that I have originally is this color scheme, but I believe it's the third variant. I don't think it's this one. And when I had actually purchased it, I bought it in a lot of figures, and I bought the entire lot specifically because I had noticed that this Tyrannosaurus was sitting there. But once I actually got it home, opened it up, unfortunately, the Rex was actually missing an entire leg. So that was a huge letdown for me. I was really bummed that I was unable to actually acquire this, because I really liked this older paint scheme on it. I thought that the older paint scheme was really flashy. I only recently, fairly recently, realized that there were numerous of the older Batat Tyrannosaurus. There's actually 3 different versions of this same similar looking Rex. There's this version, but without these kind of snowshoes we have here. Then this was the second version released, and they gave it these kind of snowshoes to help with balance, because I guess the Rex was having some balancing issues. And then there is a third one, and the third one, they actually had resculpted it a little bit, and I like the bulky look to this one as opposed to the last version of this style, which is actually, I believe, the same sculpt that they used for the newer release for the Batat Tyrannosaurus. So this one is definitely, I would say, a harder version to find with a bit of a bulkier look to it, and in my opinion, the superior of the two, because I really like the bulky look overall, and definitely am a giant fan of this figure, and I was really happy that this figure was included, because I've been trying to get a Batat Rex with this color scheme on it, one of the originals, even if it wasn't this second variant, even if it was the third variant with the slightly different resculpt, I would have been happy with that, but this one would have been my preference, or the original one. So once I had seen this one in there, I was 1000% down for purchasing pretty much a ton of these figures and just try to stockpile them up and get a really good deal on a bunch of really cool rare stuff. So that is my lot. That is all of the figures that I have obtained in this round of really cool vintage dinosaurs that I'm adding to my collection. If you want to see any of these reviewed, make sure you let me know in the comments and I will do just that. Otherwise, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.